Hey guys, welcome back. Part 2, Winter's Heart. Spoilers everywhere. Let's jump into it. I do want to say, number one, that these copies aren't the most exciting. I looked at the original copies. I mean, like the covers, for example. And the original covers are really cool. They're kind of cartoony, in my opinion. They definitely look like they came out in like the 80s or something. But of these versions, this one's probably the most sleek. I like the grey-black. And this book, the storylines have been deep. Every storyline I've gone into has 2 or 3 perspectives that we jump into, and there's layers of story in each one, and the stories overlap and intertwine, and it isn't always like that. So overall, I'm 2/3 of the way through this book. I'm just about to start chapter 22, and I've absolutely loved it. So Caemlyn, Min and Rand pop out of the air, and they're in Caemlyn, and I was really excited when I realized where they were, because so many storylines culminate here, and we got so much happening. Now, Rand's first stop is Nynaeve, and we are gonna have a really cool end to this storyline. So basically, when he leaves, Nynaeve and him, I believe, are gonna be going together, and they've taken Terangriel, Angriel, Sangriel, and I've forgotten the name of them, but the 2 little figurines that access the huge people holding the crystal balls, the male and the female one. Really cool name for them, can't remember what it is. And basically what they're going to do is try and remove the taint, those 2 together. And I think there's going to be a big battle with the Forsaken from those 2. So if I've got this straight, we're going to have Nynaeve, we're going to have Rand, and we're going to have the 2 most powerful, like Sangriel, Angriel, plus a ton of other ones as well, versus probably multiple of the Forsaken. What? Then we had the meeting. Now this meeting has been built up since probably the 4th book, when I believe we met Avinda. I think it was the 4th book we met Avinda. And yeah, so we had Min, we had Avinda, we had Elaine, and we had Rand, and essentially they all professed their love for everyone. And it was actually kind of awkward, but I think the characters handled it really, really well. And I don't know exactly what I was expecting from this scene, but it was a little bit underwhelming. But now I think on it, I think it was done really well. So what we have essentially is they all bond Rand as a warder, and Alana like passes out somewhere. And during all of this, Min gives out some predictions. So she says that Elaine is going to have twins, and then Avinda is going to have quadruplets, and they are going to be strange. And I was thinking about this before I did the video. What could make them strange? Loads of things. But the thing that popped to mind was, at the start of this book, we had like the sister ceremony, like the being reborn sister ceremony between Elaine and Avinda. And during that, they have to have someone like volunteer to be the mother, and now that's like their children, if that makes sense, because they birthed them. So I was thinking maybe Avinda is the mother for like a 4-woman ceremony, but I might be completely wrong. But that was something that would definitely make her children strange. Now, during all of this, Olivia escapes, and Olivia is from the Seanchan. She was a Daman, and it's said that she is even more powerful than Nynaeve, and the Adem was taken off of her, and essentially she said, you know, I'm ready to kill the Seanchan, and then she just disappears. So I don't believe her in the slightest. I predict she's going to be a massive problem for one of our main characters further down the line. On a side note, while we had all of the Rand and his women storyline, I think I've come to a decision. Of all of the women in Wheel of Time, the one that I would like to marry the most would be Bridget. And the reason why is she's just fun. I think she's quite straightforward, easy to get along with. Obviously, she's the ultimate badass with regards to like how many lives she's lived previously. But yeah, she just seems like a really cool woman. Now, I've also decided that either Verin or Sorilea is a dark friend, 100%. It has to be one of them. Maybe both, but I don't think so. And I'm leaning towards Sorilea. And the reason why is because when Alana passed out, Verin seemed really concerned. And I think she was like concerned for Rand. I was like, okay, now Verin doesn't have access to Alana, so she doesn't know if Rand is okay. And that could be both ways around. Maybe she was just trying to keep tabs on Rand for the Dark One, right? But I just have a feeling that Verin is good. Whereas Sorilea, if you just look at her objectively as a character, she's not very nice. And a lot of the wise ones aren't very nice to Aes Sedai and things like that. But as a whole, she's very controlling, quite egotistical, and yeah, she's just not a cool character. She's a little bit evil. So I am predicting that Sorilea is a dark friend. The only thing that doesn't really make sense with that, though, is if she is the dark friend in that camp, then surely logically she's the one who killed Asmodine. But she's not very powerful in the the source in the power. So yeah, maybe I'm just not very smart. Could be that. And we get another badass Cadsuane scene. Now, another thing that I've come to, decision, is that if I could choose one character from the entire series to have my back, it would be Cadsuane. She just handles people so well. She seems to be playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers, and she's a little bit scary. I'm quite intimidated by her, and therefore I would like her on my side. But I do think she's going to have a comeuppance at some point. Like, you can't be that imperial for the entire time. And she gives me the same feeling that Moiraine gave me at the very start. And at the very start, Moiraine was kind of running everything. And that's because all of our characters were fresh and brand new, and they didn't know anything about the world. And Cadsuane has lived for so long that that's surely true of her. Like, no matter, even if you've lived 100 years, like, Cadsuane has seen so much more of the world. She has dealt with people more dangerous than you, scenarios more deadly than you, and more complicated, and come out the other side. So yeah, I think that's a fair comparison. Like, what Moiraine was to all of our characters in book 1, Cadsuane is to, like, all the characters now. And then we get a really cool Forsaken scene, which I've always said are some of my favorites. It progresses the storyline really quickly, and you just get an insight into the other side of everything, really, because they're the dark side, and obviously mostly we're the light side. So we figured out that Arangar and Osengar are reborn Forsaken. We also know that Missana can't come to meetings, and that probably means, I mean, obviously she's over there in the White Tower. What would that mean? I feel like the reason she can't come to meetings is because she is like a really active person in the White Tower, or maybe she was the person who got found out in the White Tower with the oath rod. That would be so good. I'm really praying on that storyline coming true, that prediction, sorry, coming true. That would be really fun if Forsaken was discovered that way. We also get introduced to what I think is a new character, Cyndane, Cyndane, as I would guess it's Cyndane, or Cyndan, and she seems to have like an idea of what's going on in the future, so I thought maybe she has visions similar to Min. But what we do discover is that they now know that it's called Chowden Cow. I just looked at my notes, it's called Chowden Cow, the super powerful Angreals. And the Forsaken knows that Rand is going to try and use them to destroy the Taint. And one thing that they brought up, which was interesting, was, will the Dark One now trust the male Forsaken, knowing that they don't need his protection from the Taint anymore? And that was a really cool stipulation that I hadn't considered yet. My big prediction for the Forsaken is I think several of them die this book. I think, you can't have Rand and Nynaeve and using the super powerful things whose names I've forgotten again. Chowden Cow. You can't have Rand and Nynaeve using the Chowden Cow and it not destroying some people. So my big prediction is that you can't have Rand and Nynaeve using the Chowden Cow without several people dying, I feel like. And I feel like it's going to be the Forsaken, and my guess would be it would be the reborn Forsaken who take the big L at the end of this book. Now we also get like a sly setup. Demandred is really uncomfortable with another one of the Forsaken saying that it was fools who tried to kill Rand when the Asherman's attempt went after them. And I don't exactly know what that could mean, but maybe it means that the Asherman were working in league with one of the Forsaken. And yeah, my gut still says it's Mazrim Taim trying to kill Rand. I just hate that guy. And then boom, we jump back to Mat's storyline, and oh my god, this storyline is incredible. So we learn again more about the Seanchan. So we have Tuon, daughter of the Nine Moons, coming across, and we're introduced to several characters at once. So we're introduced to her like advice giver, which is a really interesting dynamic because she's technically below Tuon, obviously, because she's daughter of the Nine Moons. And no one else would ever dare say anything like that to Tuon, but she's allowed to give any advice. And I thought it was a really interesting and cool idea. And before I go any further on that storyline, I just want to say that Mat's storyline, I have figured out why I like Mat's storylines and perspectives so much. And the reason why is because, well, first of all, I like all the storylines. There aren't any where it picks up and I'm like, oh, it's this person, I enjoy them all. So if we look at Rand's, his are so epic and grand and so duty bound and tied to the end of the story that you feel the weight of his perspective. You feel the weight of every decision that he makes, and you feel that weight as a reader. So it's like borderline exhausting reading his storylines. Perrin's storylines are good, but they're very humble. They just have a realistic feel to them, because he doesn't really use his wolf thing that much. And although he is Verin, yeah, he just feels like a normal dude trying to do a good thing, which isn't a bad thing. Again, love all the storylines, but it's not the funnest one to read out of all of them. Nynaeve's is full of pride, and it's hot and cold and deadly, and there's rash decisions going on everywhere, and it's so headstrong, and I absolutely love that. Egwene's and Elaine's have been very political for, you know, the last few books at least. So again, fun to read, like a chess move every single time. Everything I'm reading, it feels like you're planning for like several moves ahead, and it is interesting with the politics. But Mat's storyline is free. The storyline can turn on a dime. It doesn't feel like we have one predestined destination, I suppose. And he finds the humor in everything. He's still trying to have a good time, and it doesn't feel like his storyline is like fate bound, although I know it is, because everyone's is, right? But it just feels like his is more fun and spontaneous, and a lot of the characters that he hangs around with aren't so duty bound and honor bound that everything has to have a certain custom, and there's egos that get in the way so much. It just feels a lot more like the common man's or common woman's storyline, and I definitely associate as a common man, for better or worse. And speaking of Mat's storyline, we also have, every time Mat and Rand think of each other, they get like an image of each other in swirling colors in their head. And this one perplexed me, but the only thing I can think that is they need to do something together. Like maybe it's the pattern drawing them together at the end of this book. I don't know how they would come together at the end of this book, and I don't think they will, but maybe like, you know, in the future, maybe this swirling will continue. But I just feel like they need to be back together sooner rather than later. So back to the Seanchan. Tuon arrives, and the Seanchan, I'm slowly getting more respect for them. Even though they're evil, I'm slowly getting more respect for them, because they seem very effective at running things and running places. They haven't destroyed everything. They have let commerce continue. They've allowed people to continue with their lives as a whole. And yeah, you have to have some kind of respect for that. Like, they're planning for the long term. They're not just mindless barbarians, it would seem. We get another scene with the Gholam. The Gholam is a very cool character, and I'm under the impression, although it's clearly a very powerful character, it just seems quite simple, and it's definitely being controlled by one of the Forsaken, I would guess anyway. But it seems like a tool, and not a tool in the derogatory sense where it's an idiot, a tool as in the literal sense where I believe maybe our characters, if they can find the key to using the tool, could turn the Gholam and use it to their advantage. And I don't think the Gholam is inherently evil, is what I'm trying to say. So I predict that maybe we see a Gholam switch sides. So, speaking of Tuon's advice giver, I don't trust her at all for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is stated that she doesn't really have the accent of the Seanchan, and that might be just because she came from somewhere else, I'm not sure. But number two, she chose to keep that position as the advice giver to Tuon, even though she could have taken much more ambitious positions that would allow her personally to rise more. Now, maybe she's just a good person and really cares for Tuon, or maybe she's playing the long game, and maybe she's a dark friend, because the Seanchan must have dark friends within them, right? Like, there's no way the dark one's just like, yeah, I'm just the dark one of this area. Like, surely it's the dark one of everywhere, and therefore dark friends are everywhere. And the more I read about the Seanchan, the more it just seems like an alternate reality. Like, their Ogiers are warriors. Ours are like very peaceful, it would seem. They have all these different creatures, and it just seems really unlikely that creatures are only in one area. And I know in our world, the real world, obviously that happens sometimes, like islands have their own creatures, but they're not like these crazy things that are never anywhere else as well. So like, are we doing dimensions? Like, we already have kind of done dimensions when they went through the portals to like travel that one time when it was Rand and a few others, and they had to get somewhere really quickly in one of the early books, right? So yeah, I feel like maybe the Seanchan are just from like another, I don't want to say dimension, but something like that. I know that wasn't very well articulated, but these storylines are confusing. You must remember your first read through, surely. And then on top of that, we get another layer of interesting storylines. So we have Mat trying to release, he's keeping one Aes Sedai in the cellar of, I can't remember the name of the tavern, but the one where he was staying before. So one's staying in there. He's already promised to release 2 more Aes Sedai that are in the kennels, and then we switch to Bethamin and Eganin. And Bethamin is somebody at Falme, along with some other Soldam who were placed with the Ademon, and that has like destroyed and blown their world. They're like, oh my god, that is absolutely ridiculous and crazy. That goes against everything we ever knew. Even though they seem to suspect themselves a little bit before that, they didn't really believe it to be true, and that undermines the Seanchan massively. And now Eganin is dating and about to marry, it would see, Bail Domon, who is just a good guy. It would seem like he's been in and out of the storyline, seems like a good dude, and their interaction was probably the best interaction between 2 people who like each other of any at all. So they're going to do a daring rescue, I believe, and what's going to happen is Mat is going to take the 2 Aes Sedai, bust them out of there. Obviously Bethamin and Eganin probably going to come as well. They're going to jump on Bail Domon's ship, is what I would guess, and sail to freedom. However, Tuon is daughter of the 9 Moons. Mat and Tuon, they are destined to marry. And it just seems weird for them to, I mean, there's a lot of books left, maybe they get married in the future, but it just seems weird for them to like meet and then break apart, for them only to meet again later again, right? So what that means is either Mat needs to get left behind, but we already had that storyline. That's how he's in Ebidar in the first place. He got the wall fell on him, got left behind by everybody. Will Tuon go with them willingly? Absolutely not. That's crazy. So maybe he goes to release the 2 Aes Sedai, and Tuon's there, and they have to like just take her and kidnap her, maybe, which would give our guys a massive upper hand when it comes to dealing with the Seanchan, because they have the princess essentially. So that is my prediction. I might be completely wrong. Maybe they just, you know, meet again later down the line, but that's what my gut's telling me. So we come to an end of part 2. Tell me, when you did your first read through, was your brain racing like mine, trying to figure out what's going to happen next with all the storylines, or were you just allowing it to come as it came? And because I'm making these videos, I feel like obligated to think ahead, and it's been really, really fun, but it's also quite exhausting. Like, I remember, you know, normally what I would do is just read the book and enjoy the plots unfolding. So it's given me like a new, really fun perspective making these videos, and a lot of that comes from you guys as a community, just being there and watching the videos. And yeah, so thank you essentially. If you've enjoyed them, like and subscribe, maybe send to a friend, and I'll see you in part 3.